Hello academic stars, welcome to Caltex Academy. On our board, we have a nice question from trigonometry that says, without using a calculator, work out tan of 75 to 3 significant figures. If it was not because of the restriction that says without using a calculator, you will simply rush and get your calculator and press tan of 75 and quickly you get your answer as 2 plus root 3. And since the question says 3 significant figures, then you can get it in a decimal point, and we have it as 3.73. But because of this restriction that we are not allowed to use a calculator, then for now, we just need to forget about the calc and work it using other techniques. So which techniques do you think can we use for making this question possible without touching any calculator? Now in this question, it's all about using compound angle. In our previous video, we look at how to derive the compound angle and also look at some few examples in the other video. So here, we're going to extend by giving us a variety of questions that will help us understand the topic well. The first thing we have to do is to make sure that we write this angle 75 in terms of two angles. So what two angles do you think can we add together to bring for 75? And make sure what you have to also remember is the angles must be the special angles. When we talk about special angles, we talk about angles like 0 degrees, 30 degrees, 45 degrees, 90 degrees, 270, 180, 360. Those are special angles. But of course, in trigonometry, we normally use acute angles of either 30 degrees, 45 degrees, or 60 degrees. These are the most common used angles. So here we can see that if we add two special angles of 30 and 45, we get back 75. So that is the first step we have to do to split 75 into two special angles, and this brings us tan of 30 degrees plus 45 degrees. Now here, it doesn't matter which one you start with. Somebody can start by 45 and then plus 30 is the same thing. Now, after splitting this, then the next thing here is to remember our formula. So, how is our formula written? For tan addition, now we want to write it in form of exactly what I've written here. So we say tan of two angles, A plus B. You can use alpha and beta. Any of those is accepted. This is equals to tan of the first angle here, and that is A. And we add these two, tan of the second angle, and the second angle is B, so we can divide this by 1 minus tan of the first angle A times tan of our second angle B. So from here we can see that we need to make sure that this corresponds to our A. Therefore, according to what I've written here, A is the same as 30 degrees and B is equals to 45 degrees. We can make substitution to our formula here, bringing tan of 30 plus 45 to the left hand side here and say, okay, we have tan of 30 degrees plus 45 degrees. This will be equivalent to, whenever we get A, we replace the A by 30 degrees and we add it to, when we get B, we also replace B by 45 degrees. So we can divide this by 1 minus tan of 30 degrees times tan of 45 degrees. Now, when you look at these angles, since we are told not to use a calculator, please don't use a calculator, because when I give you a tan of any angle, 45, and we get the answer, to give us 1, that is fine. But let's talk about tan of 30. You can see the calculator will rationalize it for us here, and maybe strict examiners will know that you have pressed this from a calculator. So for you to keep that originality, what you have to do is to remember our two triangles that connect 60 and 30 and 45. So we're going to use that, and let's have some drawing. So here are the two triangles that connect us to this angle, 30 and 45. Now let me assume that this angle here is 45. And if this is 45, again, since this one is 90, up here must be also 45 degrees. So here, this side is 1, and also here we have 1, and here we have root 2. Now for the next one here, we have 60 down. Feel free to also take 60 up, is the same. Now here, this is 30 degrees. And for this, we have here 1 that is opposite to our 30 or adjacent to our 60. The hypotenuse we have 2, and the adjacent here is root 3. Now let's look at tan 30. 30 is somewhere here. So tan 30 is of course given from TOA. And according to TOA, we said opposite of adjacent. Therefore, tan of our angle 30 degrees is the same as opposite to this angle 30 is 1. So we have 1 divided by adjacent. Adjacent is root 3. And of course, when you use a calculator, it will rationalize this and you have root 3 over 3. Now, to solve originality, after doing this, and the examiner will trust that for sure, you do not use a calculator and you get all your bonus marks. So on this side, we can move on and talk about tan of 45, since there are only 2 of these angles mentioned from our formula. This is given by from the same TOA that is opposite. The opposite to any of these 45, like if I take this, is 1, and we divide this over adjacent, also 1. Therefore, 1 divided by 1 is simply 1. So we can go ahead and make substitution to our formula, and we have here tan of 30 as 1 over root 3, and the sign is positive in the middle, and we have tan of 45 as 1. Then we divide the whole thing by 1 minus tan of 30, that is 1 over root 3. And multiply this by tan of 45, that is 1. So here let's struggle to make sure that we work the numerator separately, and we move also on to make this denominator separately. And here we're also free to combine it back and say tan of 75 degrees should be equivalent to, we can make maybe a second bracket here, and inside this bracket we'll have the first term, and our first term here is a result of just getting, okay, let us make this 1 standing also over 1, such that we have a common denominator of root 3 and 1. So that common denominator is root 3. So root 3 divided by root 3 is 1. 1 times 1 is also 1. Our sign is positive in the middle. So root 3 divided by 1 is root 3 times 1 is also root 3. And we can close up this bracket. That one is representing the numerator. Then we bring in our division sign, which is this one here. And we divide this by the denominator. And the denominator also have 2 terms where we can give here as 1 maybe over 1. And we subtract away 1 root 3. Because 1 times root 3 is already here, root 3. Let's close up this bracket and we simplify what we have. I think this is already simplified, but we need to work on this also. Therefore, we have still our tan of the angle of 75 degrees will be equivalent to, now maintaining this, we have still our 1 plus root 3 all over also root 3, and this will be still divided by, now here we can get an LCM of 1 and root 3, and as before, this is the same as root 3. So you can put it under a common denominator of root 3. So this number becomes root 3 because root 3 divided by 1 is root 3 times 1 is also the same thing. And the sign in the middle is negative. So root 3 divided by root 3 is 1, and 1 times 1 is also 1. So from here we can interchange this sign of division by multiplication. And remember, once we're doing that interchange, we have to alter the numerator and the denominator. Therefore, we need to also maintain our angle tan of 75. So tan 75 is equivalent to, the first term remains the same, that is 1 plus root 3 all over root also 3. And this is multiplied by, so the next term here, the numerator becomes root 3. We divide this by the denominator, that is root 3 minus 1. And now the good news here is this diagonal numbers root 3 will go, and we're left with only from the numerator 1 plus root 3. So let's recopy down here, and we have tan of 75 degrees is the same as 1 plus root 3 all over root 3 minus 1. And let's move one step further by first of all rationalizing this to obtain a simpler form before we write it in decimal in order for us to be able to round to the 3 significant figures. So with that, we can create a bracket here from the numerator and we multiply by the conjugate of the denominator. Our denominator is root 3 minus 1, meaning its conjugate is root 3 plus 1. And therefore, we also do the same thing here, plus 1, in order for our fraction here to be equivalent. Therefore, tan of 75, we need to go ahead and rationalize that. Now when you multiply 1 by root 3, we get root 3, and 1 times 1 is also 1. Root 3 times root 3 is simply 3. Then root 3 times 1 is also root 3. So we divide this by the denominator. These are differences of two squares. So with difference of two squares, we can square this first term here, and we have 3 because it's under root. The square will remove the square root, and we also square the last term here, and that is minus 1. If you square 1, of course, you get 1. That is short form. Please go ahead and also expand it in a proper way. But this is not the aim of our lesson of expansion, so I can use shortcut to make sure that we move faster. Now let's go ahead and simplify the numerator. And the numerator is, when you look at here, 1 plus 3, that is 4. And then root 3 plus root 3, this is 2 root 3. So let's start with the number, and we start by writing our angle here, tan of 75 degrees. For consistency, we need to keep our unit here. Therefore, as we're starting with the number 4 plus twice root 3, this will be divided by a common denominator. 3 minus 1 is 2. Therefore, we can see that also there's a common number here, that is 2. Let us factor it out, and we divide by the denominator. Therefore, that common factor is 2 into bracket. We are left with 2. If I open up that bracket again to obtain this 4, and since 2 has moved out, we are only left here with 3, and divide everything here by the 2 from the denominator. Therefore, these 2 will cancel with that. And if we check carefully from what we have looked at earlier on using the calculator, we had something looking exactly like what we have here. Let me put it down, and we also check it again to see that sure. If we press from calculator, you'll obtain something like 2 root 3 as the answer, tan of 75. The answer is exactly here, 2 plus root 3. But now since the answer is needed to be in 3 significant figures, then when we input that, of course, into a calculator, what we have here, we can change it to decimal by pressing on this key, SD. If you're using this type of calculator, and you have it written in terms of 3.73205. So let's write this one down. So from here, the 3 significant figures means we start counting from this side here, and the first one is first significant figure, the second, and 3. So we can transcate this number from 3 and leave out whatever number we have from this side here, and that becomes our answer. Therefore, then we can recopy here saying tan of 75 gives us this accurate result, and since we're going to make some rounding, meaning we're making some approximation, therefore tan of 75 degrees to 3 significant figures is approximately to 3.73. And of course, these are 2 decimal places, and that becomes the answer for this question, and you have never used a calculator. So when you verify using a calculator, you will find that your answer is exactly this one. Of course, we can also fix this one here to maybe 3 decimal places. Okay, let's get some set up, and we get a fixed number of values under 6, so we can say 2, such that it rounds to 3 significant figures, and you can say is 3.73 as here. And that is how we work out this number without the use of a calculator, and purely we use our mathematical techniques of the compound angle, which we have just stated up here. In case you have some small confusion somewhere, please pause the video again or rewind it, watch again. If it is more confusing, don't hesitate to write a comment in the comment section. I'll get back to you to answer. So see you in the next one. We're going to add more questions of also compound angle. See you there, and peace out.